everyone. You're watching Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and we are continuing our conversations with our various Barnstable Town Councilors. We're on Precinct 3 today, and to represent Precinct 3, Town Councilor Paul Hebert. Paul, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. So talk to me a little bit, Paul, about Precinct 3, if you can kind of give me a lay of the land geographically, where it falls in the town.
Well, we're very blessed in our precinct, though we're kind of known as a quiet precinct. Folks that are in that precinct vote at the senior center, so that helps people say, oh, that's my precinct, so that works out well. We have the high school, we have the intermediate school, we have the elementary school, all in our precinct. We have the senior center in our precinct. So we're at that end of Hyannis that encompasses that whole area. We have a number of senior housing and units and apartments in there, so that's a nice mix. So we have a good mix of business services in that area, including a supermarket and a fish market, a car dealership. And so, you know, we have a nice blend of what we have there. So it's a great precinct to be part of.
Absolutely, and I will say I agree. That's the precinct that I live in, so very familiar with the Precinct 3 area, and certainly, as you say, you know, a good mix of neighborhoods as well as the schools, the senior center, and the business services that are there as well. So, Paul, you know, given all of that kind of demographic and business characteristics of Precinct 3, what have you seen? What are the issues that your constituents are the most concerned with?
Well, I like to describe myself as a town councilor for all of the town of Barnstable, elected from Precinct 3, and again. When I made the decision to run for office, I had been asked a number of times, but you know, my hands have been pretty full with what I do within the community in terms of housing issues. So, but that's lightened up. I am today officially not the executive director anymore of the Housing for All Corporation, which is a tremendous relief. I actually wrote a piece about Paul's redemption, and for the first time in 2.5 decades, my wife and I were able to sit at home in a storm,
wow.
not directly responsible for the 7 houses and the 65 people that's there every day. So I'm still doing you know, PR work and development work for the organization, so that's great. And they describe us as now the grandparents. So that works
And
very
for
well.
our viewers who may not be aware, Housing for All, of course, Champ Homes
Champ
provide
Homes.
housing for certain individuals
Yeah,
here in
yeah.
town, and you've been doing that for a very long time.
25 years, and actually 2,500 people going through our program, so it's a great program. So to go into a precinct that folks said, you know, it's kind of, you know, no big issues, and but there are, and so we take a lot of pride in our school system, which is, you know, half of our town budget in caring for our young people, and they're certainly our future. So we're not going to ignore that. We have to. I'm a proponent for giving them everything that they need to give them the tools. We were provided that when we were growing up, and we have to provide it to the next generation. So for me, that's it's a no-brainer. We have to do that. We've been blessed with a great superintendent that we're losing, but I'm happy for our superintendent that she's going on to some great stuff for herself. So there's the school issue. There's the infrastructure is the biggest concern that I have. And as you know, wastewater is a big issue. I'm happy that the suit has been settled in terms of saying that, you know, we are making efforts and we're going in the right direction, and that's very important. I see that as so multifaceted. We wanted to build our population, if you will, and build our businesses here. And with that came a price. And so if we had stayed the little villages and we hadn't expanded and we didn't have all the facilities and all the great services that we now have, we wouldn't have this wastewater problem, but we do. So we can't put it off. We can't keep saying, well, it's for the next generation or something. We cannot put that off. And so as our wastewater problem keeps emerging, it's time to look at that. So we have a big workshop coming up later this month that's going to just spend a whole day bringing us up to speed. We have to look at all the options, and we also have to look at how the town of Barnstable fits in to the wastewater throughout the Cape, and to do what's practical. We know we can't pipe all of Cape Cod, so we have to look at what the individual systems are going to be. We have to look at certain wastewater systems of size that can take care of a neighborhood in a region. And so then, you know, we're the only ones with really a treatment plant, and there's a capacity limit to that. So that's a big issue. Right alongside of that is our drinking water supply. I mean, the day that you know, we hear more that our water is not the best, you have to boil water. for whatever reason, that can't be in our future. We have to protect our water resource, our drinking water supply. So along with that comes smart growth. So the other issue is what kinds of businesses and what kind of growth can we sustain on Cape Cod and keep us being Cape Cod. So it's a very, very, very fine line between pleasing everybody. And so there's limits to growth. And every time you do have growth, you're going to have some consequences to that growth. So I think a big job of the council, through all the fine departments that we have, is to present to the public, this is the reality, and this is where we're going. Let's just take the storms. We were not prepared because this was beyond our capacity.
Absolutely.
Okay? So we're doing the best we can, but the public is understandably frustrated by that. The good thing I see is that public is starting to realize that, you're only as strong as your neighborhood is strong. You're only as good as you're reaching out to your neighbor and as we support and care for one another. So I came on board very, very concerned about our infrastructure. A lot of it is old. Some of our roads that we're looking at and the conflict between the private road and town-owned public road. So those are issues that we can't just sweep under the carpet and say, oh, well, we'll see what happens. So I would say that infrastructure and public safety are my two main issues.
Absolutely, and those, not just unique to Precinct 3, but really throughout the entire
it's the whole
town,
town,
especially
yes.
when we talk about wastewater, not just the town, but the whole region.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is interesting. It's something that obviously isn't going to be solved by town council alone, but forging those partnerships and attending seminars like the one that's coming up in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
To really be educated about that, certainly. And so, can we talk a little bit about how, as a town councilor, you kind of work with the council, but as well as try to pay attention to things that are kind of outside of your entire scope of view?
I think that we're very blessed within the 13 councilors. I mean, we have some folks with tremendous expertise and tremendous passion within areas that they're greatly interested in. So let's just take the drug epidemic that we're facing, okay? I mean, several of my fellow councilors are so impassioned by that. And so that fits into a piece of how we care for each other. I mean, the whole healthcare issue is one thing, but what do we do when we're losing fellow citizens and human beings to the drug situation? So we have to look at one, what are the causes of that, but number two, what are the preventions of that? I'm loath to think that we're the experts. I'm loath to think that we are the ones that have all the answers. So what we have to do is really kind of keep listening. We have to listen to what the public is saying and also what the experts are saying to us so that we are constantly learning. Someone did a caricature of me with two giant ears and they said, keep that going, keep listening and speak only when you think you have something to contribute to the situation. So learning from our department heads also, I have great respect for the team that has been put together. We are very, very blessed in our community to have great leadership within the departments and great leadership within the town manager's office. So as we keep learning from them and learning from the outside, I mean, this whole workshop that we're doing is, the commission, Barnstable County Commission has been working steadfastly at pulling together all the pieces. So now we have to learn to play well with everyone else for everybody's benefit, and at the same time to be looking at what else is out there. What are we missing? So I find that we learn the greatest amount not by making statements, but by asking questions.
Absolutely.
What are we missing?
Very well put. Yeah. So if there are residents, Paul, that have questions for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with them? How do you connect with your
Actually, through the town council and council office, because they're very, very good at gleaning that and then making sure that all the councilors get the information that's general, and then also if it's particular, I can be best reached through the town council office. And I do that for the sake of being of greatest service. Because if it comes through my home computer, things that get lost in a maze of unanswered 16,000 emails. And I'm not making that figure up. That's what's on my computer today. So I find it best if it goes through the town council office, whether it's email, a telephone call, or letter, I get it because Cindy really takes good care of making sure the communications get out.
Absolutely, and good to keep all those things separate,
Right.
you know, especially when
Yeah.
you're so busy.
And I don't mind a phone call at home. You know, I got them like everybody else got them. Someplace somebody said, if you're not happy with the snow plowing, call your counselor. And so I said to one person who called, and I scandalized them. I said, they said, well, you called the DPW because they'll listen to you. I said, well, no, they're more apt to tell me to go to hell. And she said, they wouldn't tell you to go to hell. Well, they wouldn't tell a citizen. But a town councilor, and their way of doing that would be to simply say, well, give us another $3 million for equipment and manpower to go out there and clean up the mess. So, I mean, there's a reality. There's a limit of funding for any problem that we're looking at. So we have to look at how do we get the best results with the least expenditure of money without doing two things that I get very, very concerned about. One, financially starving to death a program. You know, like you don't play with that with the school department. You don't play with that with our youngsters. In terms of, you know, being cheap, we don't go there. And I see my fellow councilors understand that, you know, what the school needs, especially when it comes to safety and the environment, the facilities. But the other one is to be very, very careful about micromanaging. And, you know, we have a tendency to get there. And again, if we think that we have all the answers, I'm going to start to tell the town manager how to act, and I'm going to tell the, you know, and that doesn't work. So I think we have to be very, very careful. When you have such good people, you don't go and micromanage them. You have to let them show their leadership.
Absolutely. It's a balance.
It's a balance. Yeah.
Well, Paul, I thank you so much, as always, for coming down and joining us here on Barnstable this morning.
My pleasure. And I can't leave without just saying, for all of our citizens to please look at the whole recycling. I'm a little disappointed we didn't go as pay as you throw, but it's fine with what we have, except that you know, because we're commingling does not minimize recycling in our town. And it's a big, big issue, and we need to recycle, and I can't leave without saying that.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on the program,
Thank you.
and I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Paul Hebert is the Town Councilor for Precinct 3 for Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Coleman.